People love villains. It's undeniable. And for good reason too. They're often the most entertaining or interesting part of a story. So in this video, I'm going to explain the 3 core archetypes that every single villain in fiction could be broken down into. Starting with the first archetype. Villains that are pure evil are the most straightforward and, put simply, the most fun. They are beginning to become a bit of a lost art though. Many villains in modern fiction are pretty gray. They blur the lines of what is right and wrong, but not the villains that fall into this category. The villains that follow this archetype are simple. They're not complex or misunderstood, they simply are. Sometimes you just need a villain who's unapologetically bad, who gives the audience someone to root against without feeling conflicted. These stories work best with a protagonist who's strong in their moral beliefs. The villain's purpose in these stories is to push the protagonists to the edge, torment them, and force them to make a decision. Will they rise above, or will they allow the villain to drag them down to their level? And who is the best at doing what I just described but the clown prince himself, the Joker? The Joker is possibly the most iconic villain of all time, and he's not redeemable, and he doesn't even see himself as the hero. He knows that he's the villain, and he loves it. He exists for one reason and one reason only: to create chaos.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan? You know what I am? I'm a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it. You know, I just do things.
The Joker doesn't want power or money, he simply wants to show the world how fragile everything and everyone is. How everyone is just one bad day away from becoming like him. In The Dark Knight, the Joker shows up basically out of nowhere with the express intent of forcing Batman to question his morality and code and inevitably expose him. He tells Batman multiple times throughout the movie to show the people who you truly are. Now, on a surface level, you may take this to be the Joker trying to expose Batman's identity, but I think really what the Joker wants to do is expose that Batman is just like him, but on the opposite side of the spectrum. The last thing that he wants to do is kill Batman, because without Batman fighting for order and justice, there can be no Joker who stands for chaos and injustice. His ideology is anti-ideology. His only purpose in life is to spread chaos, and as he says,
I'm an agent of chaos.
Most of the scenarios that he puts Batman in throughout the movie are unwinnable, because again, he isn't trying to actually prove or do anything besides cause the most panic and force Batman to renounce his no-kill rule and show the world who he truly is.
I have one rule.
Oh, then that's the rule you'll have to break to know the truth.
Which is?
The only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. And tonight you're gonna break your one rule.
While the Joker is absolutely the best example of a pure evil villain, there are tons of other examples of this kind of character in our media. Take for instance, arguably the second most famous pure evil villain, Emperor Palpatine. The Emperor is the embodiment of evil, a literal Dark Lord who cares for nothing besides himself and spreading corruption and chaos across the galaxy. Just like the Joker, the Emperor loves being the villain. He revels in the torment of others.
Oh, I'm afraid the deflector shield will be quite operational when your friends arrive.
Other examples of this archetype include Sauron from Lord of the Rings, another Dark Lord, or King Joffrey from Game of Thrones, a psychopathic brat with no redeeming qualities who gets off on the torment of others. Other versions of the pure evil villain also include most of the slasher film villains, iconic antagonists like Michael Myers, Freddy, and Jason. Or going even deeper, this archetype also includes classic movie monsters like the Xenomorph from Alien, or the shape-shifting creature from The Thing. Every single one of the villains that I just named are irredeemably simple characters. These villains don't need complex motivations, they are the threat. The story is often about just trying to survive them. They have a way of creating tension when they're on screen that other types of villains just can't recreate. I think a lot of this tension comes from the fact that they're just so unpredictable. You never know what they'll do. This kind of villain can be liberating for writers. You don't have to explain them. They're evil, and that's the point. And that kind of simplicity allows for iconic storytelling.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
But if you think that pure evil villains are kind of boring, and you prefer your villains with a little bit of depth and nuance, then this next archetype is for you. Redemption stories are powerful. They carry a type of emotional weight that the other two categories of villains in this video just cannot match. We love these types of stories because they reflect something real. We see these characters struggle and fail and choose to be better. They often center around themes such as loss and regret that really resonates with viewers. These themes help us understand the villain's viewpoint and why they are the way that they are, because these are things that we deal with in our own lives. These types of stories also incite drama, much more than the other types of villains. Oftentimes, these redeemed villains would fit better in a classic Greek tragedy than an action movie. And speaking of a villain who would fit right in a Greek tragedy, we have without a doubt the most famous example of a redeemed villain, Darth Vader himself.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Vader's story is one of the most unique redemption stories we've ever gotten, purely for the fact of how fleshed out it is. Usually with these types of characters, we meet them as we met Vader in A New Hope, at the height of their villainy, when they're fully consumed by the darkness with seemingly no way out, until the hero arrives and shows them the path to redemption. We may get a few flashbacks to their childhood or before they were corrupted by whatever forces, but Vader is the only one that we truly get to see his entire life story from beginning to end. We see Anakin as a bright-eyed young child with dreams to help people and explore the galaxy. We see him be named the Chosen One and become a prodigy in the Jedi Order and a veteran of the Clone Wars. Then his tragic downfall into the dark side and the creation of Anakin Skywalker's alter ego, Darth Vader, before finally seeing his son bring him back to the light and fulfill the prophecy by bringing balance to the Force in the end. On its own, the original trilogy already cemented Vader as one of, if not the greatest villain of all time. But the extra layers that the prequels added to the character are essential to understanding Anakin Skywalker's story. But this video is focused on his redemption, so I would like to point out just how well they handled the foreshadowing of his turn to the light.
I sense you wish to continue your search for young Skywalker.
Yes, my master.
I think the problem with a lot of modern redemption stories is the lack of buildup. Rewatching the original trilogy again for this video, it was very obvious how conflicted Vader was during the events of Empire and Return of the Jedi. David Prowse did an incredible job with conveying emotion even behind the mask of Vader. I think my favorite scene that shows Vader's struggle was in Return of the Jedi when Luke allowed himself to be captured so that he could confront the Emperor.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do. You don't know the power of the dark side.
Also, real quick, I think the best moment in all of Star Wars is when Luke throws down his lightsaber and says,
"You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me."
Shit, I mean, that was so good, that could have been the moment Vader decided to turn for all we know. But in all seriousness, Vader, when we meet him in A New Hope, was horribly consumed by the dark side. He lost everything, and for 20 years was nothing but a metal shell following the orders of the Emperor. He had completely separated himself from his old life until Luke lit a spark in him that he didn't even know was there. Luke was the only connection he had to Anakin and his love, Padme. And once that spark was lit, it began to consume him like the dark side had consumed him all those years ago. Honestly, I could talk about Darth Vader for hours, but we do have some other redemption stories I would like to touch on. And as good as a character as Vader is, I think the actual best redemption story ever written was Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Zuko's redemption story is so good because it's incredibly slow-paced and earned. It's realistic in that sometimes he takes a few steps forward, before falling right back into the manipulation and pressure from his family. It takes him multiple tries to get it right, and it isn't until the very end where he finally stands up to his dad and realizes Ira was right the whole time that he manages to get it right.
How can you forgive me so easily? I thought you would be furious with me.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
Another incredible redemption story is Omni-Man. Raised from birth to be a soldier and brainwashed by a race of space Nazis into believing that emotions were for the weak and that the Viltrumites were the superior race in the universe, who was then taught to love by his time on Earth with his son and wife. Other characters that fit into this archetype include Megamind, who started as a villain because he didn't believe he could be anything else until he was given a chance to be good. Or the Ice King from Adventure Time, who over time, we learn, sacrificed his own sanity to protect his adopted daughter in the aftermath of the Mushroom War. Or the many Marvel villains such as Loki, Winter Soldier, Yondu, or Nebula that have switched sides to work with the heroes. And even some monster movie villains as well, like Godzilla fighting against the other kaijus, or Rexy fighting against the genetically modified dinosaurs in Jurassic World. When I think of these characters, and notice how I've been referring to them more as characters than villains during this section, I think of them as tragic, misunderstood, and victims of their circumstances. These types of stories stick with us for a long time after watching. They're powerful because they remind us that no one is ever truly lost.
You were right. You were right about me.
Now, if you're enjoying the video so far, let me know down in the comments if you think that there are any villains that I should have included in the first two archetypes. Alright, but without further ado, I present our last archetype.
I am inevitable.
This archetype is for the villains who genuinely believe with every fiber of their being that they are right. Some of them understand that they may be seen as a villain, but they don't care because they are so convinced of their own ideology that they will not allow others' opinions to sway them from their chosen path. This type of villain is pretty rare because they're difficult to write, but when done right, they can force us to confront uncomfortable truths about society and what is right and what is wrong. They make us question who the good guys and who the bad guys really are. They create fierce discourse and endless conversations that can keep these stories alive far longer than they normally would have. And without a doubt, one of the best modern villains at creating discourse and making the audience beg the question, what if the villain was right, is the Mad Titan, Thanos. Thanos never once wavered in his belief that the universe was living on borrowed time. He watched overpopulation and famine destroy his home, and he refused to stand around and watch as the same thing happened to countless planets across the universe. So far, so good. The issue is, he believed the solution to this problem was to wipe out half of all living beings in the universe.
But random, dispassionate fare to rich and poor alike.
Now, I'm not going to get into whether Thanos was right or wrong. There are already enough videos covering that on YouTube, but regardless of whether he is right or wrong, you have to respect the man. He threw his entire life away in an attempt to make the universe better. It's a righteous cause. He is objectively not evil, even if his methods are a bit cruel. Throughout Infinity War, he has multiple opportunities to kill the Avengers, but he doesn't. He simply neutralizes the threat. He even expressed admiration and respect to the heroes for standing up to him like they did. The only life he took during his journey of collecting the stones was his daughter Gamora, which he was clearly very upset by having to do. Thanos states multiple times throughout the movie that he feels as if he is the only one who can foresee this cataclysmic issue, and is the only one with the ability and the willpower to carry out what needs to be done. In Thanos' mind, this was the only option. He wished he didn't have to kill his daughter, he wished he didn't have to kill half the universe, but since no one else will, he has to make the sacrifice for the greater good. He shows remorse and regret for the bad things he had to do to complete his mission. You can tell this is true because once his mission is complete, he retires to his garden, just as he said he would. Thanos is definitely a villain, but he is not evil.
It needs correction.
You don't know that!
I'm the only one who knows that.
Another character who may be seen as a villain by some and a hero to others is the master of magnetism, Magneto. Magneto already lived through one genocide during the Holocaust as a child, and now, as an adult, he's watching it happen all over again with the mutants. His methods of saving mutant kind are righteous, but they're shaped by trauma. He often crosses moral boundaries for the sake of mutants that puts him in direct opposition to the human race. In reality, he simply wants mutants to be seen as equals and abolish any type of mutant discrimination, but his methods of acquiring this are often quite controversial. Other characters that fall into this archetype include Superman from the Injustice timeline, a character shaped by the loss of his wife who goes too far in trying to establish order, or even Walter White from Breaking Bad, who starts as a desperate man trying to provide for his family and cure his cancer, but eventually devolves into an ego-driven villain who only cares about power and protecting his pride. Also, Dr. Doom, a genius who genuinely believes the world would be better if he was in charge, with verifiable proof of his work in his home, Latveria. All of these villains undeniably have the right idea, but are using the wrong methods. And so, you must ask yourself, what matters more? The journey or the destination? What would you do in some of their situations? Where do you draw the line between righteousness and ruthlessness? These types of questions are exactly why we love this archetype of villain. They incite natural conversations regarding right and wrong, and we respect them for their commitment and conviction. So, to recap, we have the pure evil villains. No motives, no empathy, just pure chaos. We have the redeemed villains, tragic falls with powerful returns to the light. And the heroes, righteous causes with skewed senses of morality. Chaos, catharsis, and conviction. Those are the themes that I think of when I think of these categories of villains. Now, of course, sometimes villains blur the lines or they change over time, but these three archetypes cover all of the different villains that we love to hate in our fiction. Each bring different things to the table, but the one thing every good villain has in common, they will stick with us long after the story has come and gone. That's how you know a villain is written well. Do you agree that every villain could fit into one of these three archetypes? And were there any villains you wished I had mentioned in one of these categories? Let me know down in the comments. And if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you and to please consider dropping a like, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications so that you don't miss my next video. Alright, thank you guys again. Peace.